So you lie down, the room is dark, your body is exhausted, your brain decides now is the perfect time to review everything you said in that meeting 3 years ago. You plan tomorrow's entire schedule and you run a full threat assessment on your life. I wonder if that sounds familiar. There's a reason your mind does this, and there are specific, pretty fast techniques that you can use tonight to start interrupting that in the moment, including one that's called the cognitive shuffle that most people have never heard of. But once you understand how it works, you're going to want to use it every night. And I'm going to give you 3 tools in full around this. But I also want to take you one layer deeper today, because after years of helping people rebuild their sleep, the most important question isn't how you shut off the mind, but it's why your mind is there in the first place, running at midnight. So let's get curious about the minds. And before we go, this channel is built around one thing, getting to the actual root of why your sleep breaks down. If this is the kind of content you've been looking for, hit subscribe. I want to start with this one because most people haven't heard of it, and the name alone is worth stopping for. The cognitive shuffle. It was developed by Dr. Luc Prevost, close enough, a cognitive scientist studying sleep onset. And the premise is a bit counterintuitive, which is exactly why it works. So here's what's happening when you lie down and your mind won't stop. Your brain moves into problem-solving mode, right? It's doing what it's actually built to do, connecting thoughts, building logical sequences, running scenarios. That mode is incredibly useful when you're awake, but it's the exact opposite of what's needed to actually sleep. So sleep onset requires your brain to move into that more random, fragmented, loosely associative state. And think about thoughts you have right before you fall asleep. They don't make complete sense. They drift, they're strange, and that's not an accident. It's the transition. The cognitive shuffle works by intentionally switching your brain into that transitionary sleep state. So here's how you do it. You pick a random neutral word, something with no emotional charge, umbrella, cobblestone, lantern, doesn't matter. Then slowly and deliberately, one letter at a time, visualize an image for each letter. U, pick an umbrella, just the umbrella, look at it. M, a mountain, see it, hold it for a few seconds. B, a butterfly, let it just sit there. R, a rainbow. You get the point. You're not telling a story, you're not connecting anything. It's random, unrelated, visual. What this does is interrupt your brain's natural tendency to chain thoughts together into logical sequences. You're essentially confusing the problem-solving brain into standing down. And it can't maintain a coherent worry loop while it's trying to picture random objects. This can help many with the occasional sleep issues due to that racing mind, but this reveals something very important. Your brain is needing to be tricked out of the overthinking. So ask yourself, why is it that I'm stuck overthinking here in the first place? But we'll come back to that. If you've spent any time in the health optimization space, you've heard of NSDR, and that's non-sleep deep rest. Andrew Huberman has talked about this extensively, and rightfully so. The research behind it is solid, and it has real practical application for sleep. NSDR is essentially a guided protocol that brings your brain into this theta brainwave state. And that's the same state you pass through naturally when you're falling asleep. So deep relaxation without full unconsciousness. And this comes from the practice of yoga nidra, and that's been around for thousands of years, but the modern NSDR framework has been, I guess, a more accessible way for people to naturally gravitate towards a meditation practice. And so this is how it works. Your autonomic nervous system has 2 primary states. The sympathetic, that's the activated, alert, problem solving, and the parasympathetic, calm, restorative, safe. And NSDR guides your nervous system from that first into the second through a combination of scanning, breath awareness, and progressive release of muscle tension. So you're not forcing sleep, you're creating the psychological conditions where sleep becomes possible. So how to use this practically? You don't need to do this for an hour. There are 10-minute NSDR protocols on YouTube. Search Yoga Nidra or NSDR sleep protocol. Huberman has released a few free versions of this as well. 10 minutes, lying down, guided audio, eyes closed. For a lot of people, this works better than the supplement they've tried. But an important nuance, NSDR works by mimicking your nervous system's safety. It's borrowing a felt sense of calm from a guided external source, which is genuinely useful, but it raises that same important question. Why does your system need an external prompt to feel safe enough to rest? Hold that question. We're almost there. So 2 quick ones here because I know these work together. The 5-4-3-2-1 sensory grounding. This is a technique that pulls your brain out of the future and past, where all the anxiety and overthinking live, and it drops you into the present moment through senses. So here's the sequence. Name, silently or out loud, 5 things that you can see. Ceiling, shadow, the wall, outline of the window. 4 things that you can physically feel. The weight of the blanket, the temperature of your feet, the breathing moving through your body. And 3 things you can hear. Whatever is actually in the room. Maybe the quiet hum of the air, a distant sound outside. 2 things you can smell, even if they're subtle, the pillow, the air. And then 1 thing you can taste. And what this technique does is interrupt that rumination loop by redirecting your brain's attention to a sensory input that only exists right here and now. Overthinking is always about something that happened or something that might happen. Your senses only exist in this moment. You can't be fully activated by tomorrow's meeting and simultaneously feeling the exact texture of your sheets. 2 can't coexist with full intensity. All right, the second one is the 4-7-8 breath. This one's popular, well studied, and I want you to do it with me now. Breathe in through the nose for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale slowly through the mouth for 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now do this 4 times. That extended exhale is key. Your exhale activates your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest response. A longer exhale than your inhale tells your body physiologically that the threat has passed. That is not a metaphor. This is a direct nervous system signaling. And it takes under 2 minutes. And it works. Just want to take a quick pause. If you're realizing that you want more techniques, that you're ready to actually work on what's underneath this sleeplessness, I run a sleep recovery community called Healing Sleep at its Root. It's $8 a month, 20 plus courses, assessment tools, live calls with me weekly, and community support is always there. The link's in the description. All right, back to the video. Now it's getting more interesting because every single tool I just gave you works. I want to be clear about that. Use them tonight. They can help. But the question still remains, why is our brain running a board meeting at midnight in the first place? Let me give the tools their honest credit first. The cognitive shuffle interrupts that problem-solving brain being stuck there. NSDR guides your nervous system from sympathetic activation into parasympathetic state. The 5-4-3-2-1 pulls you out of the future worry and the past replay into the present moment. And then the 4-7-8 breath directly signals to your system that it's safe to settle. All of these do something real and all of them are worth using. But here's the question nobody asks. Why does your brain need to be tricked, guided, redirected out of overthinking or hypervigilance to sleep each night? Because the problem-solving mode has a job. And it's a job to resolve things that feel unresolved. When your brain runs that loop at midnight, replaying a conversation, building tomorrow's plan, scanning for what might go wrong, it's not malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do. And it's scanning for unresolved things, and it found some. Here's the real mechanism. The overthinking at night is not a bad habit. It's not a personality flaw. It's not something to fix with the right app or the right breathing pattern. It's a signal. Your nervous system is in a problem-solving mode because some part of you doesn't feel safe enough to let go at night. And until that underlying state changes, any tool or sleep hack won't make a meaningful difference because the underlying driver is still running. The tools quiet the symptom. They don't resolve what's underneath. And for a lot of people watching this, understanding what's underneath changes everything. So what is underneath? What is your brain actually scanning for at midnight? This is the part most people never get to the bottom of, never get told. When you can't sleep from your racing mind, it's a survival mechanism. Not a disorder, not a quirk, a survival mechanism. Your brain's primary job above everything else is to keep you alive. And the way it keeps you alive is by solving threats before they materialize. So when your day ends and the external world gets quiet, when the meetings stop, the phone goes down, the demands pause, your brain doesn't automatically go quiet with it. It scans. It looks for what's unresolved. What's been left unsaid? What hasn't been felt yet? What problem doesn't have a solution yet? And it runs those loops until it can find the resolution or until complete exhaustion forces it to stop temporarily. This is why at night is when all of this surfaces. You can't sleep because during the day, you're busy, you're moving, you're deciding, producing, managing, performing, and all that activity gives your brain somewhere to point its attention. But the moment the world gets quiet, all the things that you didn't process during the day are still there. They didn't disappear because you got busy. They just waited. And midnight is when they get their turn. High achievers and overthinkers are particularly vulnerable to this, not because they're more anxious, but because they've built their entire identity around solving, controlling, producing, and managing. The brain that makes you exceptional during the day, the one that runs the scenarios, anticipation, problems, process information quickly, it doesn't automatically clock out at 10. It keeps doing its job because you never taught it that the job was done for the day, because the job for someone who's wired this way feels never really done. And here's the part that may feel hardest to hear. The harder you try to shut off your mind, the worse it gets. Because trying to force your brain into silence is in itself a form of a threat. Stop thinking is not a command your nervous system can process. It registers the effort as urgency, and it interprets the pressure as a signal that something is wrong. And it responds accordingly by staying alert. You're trying to override an alarm system by adding more alarm. The daytime connection, and this is the core of it, if you never process before bed, if you never give your emotional world space to breathe, if you've always stay in producing mode and managing and pushing forward, it will surface at night because the nervous system will always find its window. And if you don't give it the window before you rest, it will take that time at 3 a.m. So what is the best way to stop this overthinking at night? Stop trying to silence your mind and start listening to the body. When your mind races at night, it's working through something. And a question worth asking before bed or at some point during your day is, what is my brain actually trying to work out? And what is my body feeling? Not to solve it intellectually, not to analyze it, but to feel it. Because most of what your brain is scanning for at night isn't a problem to solve. It's an emotion that hasn't been felt yet, an experience that hasn't been completed, something your body is holding on to that your mind keeps circling because it hasn't been allowed to land. Doing this emotional processing before bed is the most underrated sleep tool in existence. Not journaling about your feelings in a detached, analytical way, not just thinking through your stress, actually feeling what's present. Give it 5 minutes of honest attention before it follows you to bed. Ask, what am I carrying today that hasn't had space yet? And letting whatever comes up actually land in your body. Not managed, not pushed down, felt. And this feels uncomfortable at first, especially for people who've been dealing with this for years and overriding that internal challenge in favor of output and performance and doing. But it is the difference between a tool that works for 2 nights and a nervous system that learns over time that it doesn't need to run the board meeting at midnight because the meeting already happened during the day. What's powerful is building nervous system safety as a daily practice and not just a bedtime intervention. Micro pauses during the day, brief moments of stillness between tasks, movement without performance demand, a few minutes of breath that is optimized, just slow and real. And these aren't sleep hacks, these are daily practices that change what your nervous system brings to your sleep. Because when your system feels safe during the day, and I mean genuinely, not just managed, it doesn't need to run that loop at midnight because the loop's job is to find safety. Give it safety earlier and it stands down on its own. So the full picture, 3 tools for tonight: the cognitive shuffle, NSDR, yoga Nidra, or the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding plus that 4-7-8 breath. I know there's a lot of these things. Feel free to go back and explore them. And then I really want to challenge you for the deeper work. Start asking what your brain is actually running at midnight. Give it space during the day, building safety into how you live, not just how you sleep. Because the goal isn't to shut your mind off. The goal is a nervous system that doesn't feel like it needs to run at midnight in the first place, right? And that work, it makes the tools unnecessary. And it's actually what we go into in my sleep support community, healing sleep at its root. It's actual root cause work, nervous system regulation, emotional processing, and a group of people who understand what this actually feels like because they're in it too. There's over 20 courses, live calls with me, and a community that understands. The link's in the description. If this landed for you, drop a comment. Tell me which tool you're going to try tonight. I read every single one. So until I see you in the next video, rest well.